closer. Oh, don't want to do that. What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Sylvester Stimley, aka Sly, here with Keeping It Kingdom. Remember, it's not just a saying, it's a lifestyle. And today is gonna be a good day. Hey, I know I say that all the time, but this pod runs deep. This particular episode is going to allow you viewers to be able to sit in on a conversation that I get to have with my brother. That we go way back. And I'm excited to be able to allow him to share about what God has been doing in and through his life, through the different doors God has opened up for him. But we share some common things. And I'm excited just to be able to just unpack that in a really raw way. And our prayer, if you're watching this, is that you can walk away from this encouraged and equipped to basically take what you hear and apply it in your life in a way that you know that God is going to put you in positions and places for unique purposes. And he wants to use you as the light. And so no further delay. Let me stop delaying and welcome my guest, really my brother. We're not going to call him a guest. This is my brother here, Jose. What's up, bro? What's going on, man?
How are you, Sly?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm glad to have you here in the studio. We've been talking about this for a while. Even our Kingdom Connection, we've talked about years ago. Like, if God could ever use us, like, let's make sure we glorify him. And that's one thing I can say thank you, because you were teaching me early, because you had already been in the game. When I say the game, the sports performance, that industry, right? And so you had always said, hey man, like act as if when you're working with a pro athlete, like it's nothing. Like, don't allow it to go to your head. Don't get too big. Don't get too high. And make sure you glorify God. And so I just want to say thank you, because God has put me in some places, and he's allowed me to work with some people that I can say, had I not had the wisdom that you gave me, the perspective, I can truly say that, man, I would have allowed my immaturity to really run me off the road and not steward those relationships well. And so do us a favor and just tell us who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your faith journey.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm honored that you remember our early conversations. A lot of times you run into people and you meet new people and in the business, and people that you have things in common, and you try to impart wisdom, advice, and you never know who takes it and who doesn't. So I'm flattered and honored that you remember that. But a little bit about who I am. By, I guess, all practical purposes, I've always been a baseball guy. I grew up playing baseball. I've been in baseball all my life. And as I've grown in my faith, trying to make sense of all that, seeing where God has taken me, the people that he's put me in front of, the ups, the downs, I can honestly say that the two most consistent presence, I guess I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, has been God and baseball.
Yeah.
And so, as far back as I can think about the kind of, kid, man that I am, I always had this desire to be a great athlete, be a good athlete. And it was something that was always before me. Every sport that I ran into, I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it well, but it was always baseball that was the most consistent. And but also, I grew up in a church. I grew up with parents who are believers, who are still married after 50-something years of marriage.
Wow. What? Say what?
They've been married for 54 years. Yes.
You said 54?
54.
That is unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, Tell me the last time you heard somebody say that. Like that is uncommon.
Well, you know, it is
Wow.
the beautiful thing in my life. My parents and my in-laws have both been married for over 50 years. So not only does my wife and I have good examples of Christian parents, but parents that have been together for more than 50 years.
So y'all are being, wow, what a blessing
Yeah.
to have your wife, Ann, beautiful Ann. Hey, love you. Hey, y'all are such a blessing. And this right here, I did not know. Between the two of you, you're coming from a background of 100 years of marriage.
Yeah.
That is unheard of. But that is a blessing.
Yeah.
Wow. Keep going. I'm sorry.
And you know, and just to kind of piggyback about what you said about not getting too high, not getting too low, not being overwhelmed or starstruck over some of my experiences. When I think about what's really been important in my life, has always been God and family, and through my parents, the example of my in-laws, uh, I have seen that the most important things in life are not the job. It's not the job. It's not the sport. It's not the experiences. It's the people that are in your life, your family, and I've always valued family above anything else, and so that's why my job as a strength coach and the sport itself never really impressed me all that much, because I always looked at it as that was a fantasy world. That was not real life. Real life is that dad, that mom that work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and they're still together. They're raising 4 or 5 kids. They're still together. To me, that was real life. Those are the people that always impressed me. It was never about the sports.
Wait. Say that again. Because we were just talking about this. Like the world like magnifies, glorifies all of the things, right? Glorifies all of the things that a lot of times don't really matter. But you're like, look, let me tell you what's impressive. What's impressive is the fact that this woman I'm getting ready to marry, and then she can say, this man I'm getting ready to marry has been married for, when y'all met, would have been, what, 20, 30 years or something like that?
Yeah, we'll be married 30 years on Monday.
So they were married.
No, Ann and I.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But y'all's parents had already been deep in the game 20 plus years. And so, not about the championships. I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was 60 Minutes. They were interviewing Tom Brady. Love Tom Brady. Great athlete, right? He understands the game. And I don't remember which championship it was, but the interviewer was sitting across from me and said, Tom, like, tell me, how does it feel? You got another championship. He was like, man, I thought it'd be more than this. And that just goes what you're saying. Like, man, like like we can chase all the things of the world, but it will never, ever be able to replace God and family. So good.
Yeah. And I guess let's get back to who I am, and kind of I'll get back to the family part, because I believe my marriage is part of my testimony. So I always make sure that I bring that up when I talk about sports. So growing up in Puerto Rico, was born in Puerto Rico.
Shout out to our Puerto Rico people. If you see this, can you give them some love? Give them some love, like something in Puerto Rican. I'm not gonna try it.
Hermanos. And grew up playing baseball, basketball. I mean, that's what we all play in Puerto Rico. Pick up basketball, baseball, as much baseball as you can stand. But when I was 12 years old, we moved to Miami, Florida. I was exposed to other sports, and so I was like, I thought this football thing looks pretty cool. So I got into football. Ended up playing baseball and football in high school. Went to college for baseball. And as I began to realize, maybe I do have some potential in baseball, I remember having a conversation with my mom, and my mom trying to, as all mothers do, try to get us straight, make sure that you're on the right path, and or at least the right frame of mind. Uh, I remember her telling me, "You're beginning to have some success in your game. You're beginning to have some success." But remember that all good things come from God, and you need to glorify God with
Mm.
your talents, and you got to make sure that you're grateful for what you're achieving. And I remember saying something like this, knowing me, kind of how I am sometimes. No, no, no. You know what? I appreciate you saying that, but I have been working really, really hard at this for a lot of years, and this has been my own doing. This is my work coming through, and of course, she dropped it and whatever. But fast forward to University of Tennessee, I'm is my junior year. It is the year that most guys get drafted, and they still have leverage. So it's the right time to get drafted. That season, I just lost all ability to hit a baseball. It just is almost like it was completely gone
Mm.
from one day to the next, and I couldn't understand why. And like every athlete that goes through setbacks, you start trying to fill that hole, that void, that depression, that disappointment with other things. And so I mean, I almost almost lost it all. I got kicked off the team for missing curfew and doing things that I wasn't supposed to do. Uh, but looking back, because I ended up on the bench, I met my brother-in-law. I met a guy that was from Knoxville that wasn't playing much, but he started to take me, to his house, and I met his family, and I started hanging out with the family. And long story short, that this family ended up almost adopting me because it became my wife's family became the refuge away from college, trying to get away from that lifestyle, almost trying to get away from the disappointment that I was going through as an athlete. Uh, and at the end of that season, I was just gonna quit, go home, call it a career. I figured that was it. I didn't have it anymore. But I remember that conversation that I had with my mom about giving God the glory, about being grateful to God for the success that I had, and and I thought back at all the conversations that I've had with my mom and my Christian upbringing, and realizing, you know what, if Jesus is real, I think He can help me. It's kind of one of those, you come to realization, like the prodigal son. You come to realization that it's like, I've had the truth in front of me all this time, and I
Mm.
still haven't tapped into the truth. And I had a moment in my in-laws' house, in my bedroom, where I knelt down, and I asked God, if you're real, I help me. I surrender. I've been holding on to baseball for far too long. It has been my God for far too long. I give up. I surrender. And so, if you're real, I need your help. Send someone uh, to help me walk through this. I need someone to help me with this. So if you're real, um, help me. And it was kind of one of those prayers, conversations. I still feel like praying is a conversation between you and your Father.
Yes, sir.
And I I've always made it a point not to make my prayers overly religious sounding. It's more like, Dad, I need this.
Mm.
Dad, I need that. Or Dad, I'm struggling with this. And it was kind of one of those conversations um, that I had with God, and it felt real. And so I said, okay, I'm not gonna quit. Um, my brother-in-law asked, why don't you stay the summer, spend the summer with us, go to the beach with us, stay around, don't quit. And just the prospect of quitting and going back to uh, my past friendships and things like that, I was like, no, you're right. I shouldn't go home. I shouldn't quit. Um, but then, so I stayed.
So you'd have been going from Miami back to
Well, Knoxville back to Miami.
Tennessee back to
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
got it.
Yeah, and so I enrolled back in school, and you know, first day I walked into the dorm, I ran into the chaplain who had been pursuing me the year before, and I saw him, and I walked up to him, and I said, "Hey, Jamie, I think I became a Christian." And he,
Hold on. So your first day,
my first day, that's back at school in the fall.
so we could be silly to say that's a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you were talking to Abba Father. You were like, "Yo, look, I need you,
Mm-hmm.
and I need you to make it known. Like no guessing, no like. I need something so that I know this is you."
Mm-hmm.
And you say the first day,
Yeah.
and you're walking into an environment where I would imagine in that space it could have been hundreds of people in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was the dorm room, the athletic dorm.
I mean, the dorm probably has 100 people, maybe. I don't know, but traffic, people just moving. But the first person, God was like, "Jose, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I want you. I love you. And I am about to show you by bringing someone that was already pursuing you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I still remember, I can still envision the lobby, the double doors. I walked in, there's the lobby, and here he comes. And I just ran to him. I was like, "Hey, Jamie, I think I became a Christian." And he was like, "Great. Let's get together and start going through the principles of the Bible." And he took me through the, explaining the Holy Spirit and the Trinity and all the things that I think we all need to know once we make that decision.
Right.
And so I joined the Athletes in Action, which is similar to FCA, and I joined that group. And so then that became my social group. So I started hanging out with those guys and that group, and going to Bible studies with them and things with them. And through that, yeah, that was what turned my faith around.
Mm.
I had that conversation maybe a month and a half, maybe a couple months earlier, and God put him in my life to get me to the next level, to get me through this situation that I was going through.
You know what's amazing, and I hope this is encouraging for you. You got benched. That in itself, I would say, at least for me, one that, like, growing up, there was never a season I didn't start on offense or defense, any sport I played.
Mm-hmm.
You got benched.
Yep.
And because you got benched, you got blessed.
Yep.
Because you got benched, God orchestrated. He put the right person in the right place at the right time in that season of your life to make sure that you would have a kingdom connection that led to a kingdom relationship that now, on the other side of that, we can look back and say, it was because he benched you, you were able to give your life to Christ. Like, that moment does not happen unless you get benched. You don't meet him. You don't accept Jesus in your room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we know, I know there's more to the story that's coming. That's a beautiful part.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
like, God is that kind, and he is that loving to say, it doesn't just have to happen on a Sunday morning when there's an altar call.
Yeah.
Like, he knew what you love. You love sports. He knew the desires. It says he knows the desires of your heart. And he said, Jose, I have to meet you in a unique way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can't be common. Like, the way that you're wired, when he says he knows the number of hairs on our head, When it says that he knows us when we're in our mother's womb, he knows you. And he says, you know what? I know where I got to meet you at.
Mm-hmm.
So let me put you on the bench. Now to the carnal mind, to the flesh, we were like, man, I can't believe I didn't got benched. But God did that on purpose, with a purpose, and for purpose, because he was pursuing you. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. And even if we don't talk about anything else,
Come on.
and if there's one person listening that just gets this one point, that's all you really need to listen to. And that's the only thing you need to get about this conversation is that God does not do anything without a purpose. Everything has a purpose. And especially as athletes, sometimes it is so hard to separate who we are and what we do.
Mm.
And so,
no, you're going to say that one again.
yeah,
Say it again, because they need, yes, say it again.
yeah, all athletes, they need to separate who they are from what they do. And every one of us, I think we all struggle with identity. Every human being struggles with identity. But athletes, I think athletes a little bit more, especially if they're wired a certain way where they're just so competitive that being on the bench, it's almost like living hell. I mean, it's like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me at that point in my career. That was like my year. I had just had this incredible fall season. I was getting a lot of looks from pro teams, a lot of talk about who I was and who I was going to be, and all these projections and all these things that I was hearing about me, and to be benched at that moment, it was the most awful thing that could have ever happened to me. And so, again, if you don't get anything out of this message, is that sometimes God has to take some things away to get your attention because he wants better things for you. And so it takes, and the other part of this is that it took me years to realize that, that this moment wasn't just a bad moment in my life where I was benched and I had a few run-ins with my coach and all kinds of other things that we tend to blame, because every one of us want to know why things happen. Everybody wants answers, and you start trying to figure out why certain things happen, and you start putting blame mostly on people, and I'll get to that in a second because I want to make sure that comes out. But it took me a while to realize that, and so once I got past that, I came back to school. I'm now connected with Athletes in Action. I'm growing in faith and stuff like that. But the other part of that is I had surrendered baseball to God, and I had committed to mine or decided I was only there to get my grades back up, graduate, and finish what I started, which was get a college degree. But for whatever reason, all the other things just started coming. I started hitting. I lost a lot of weight that I probably was, which I thought at the time it was usable muscle, but it was useless muscle. So I lost a lot of that muscle, and allowed me to run better, which I gained my speed back. So long story short, I had a great season. I led the SEC in stolen bases. I was second in batting average. I was All-America and all kinds of other things, but all those things came back without trying because I didn't even work out during the summer. I didn't even try. And I was the type that I couldn't go more than a day or two without lifting weights. So I had surrendered everything. That summer I did nothing. I played a little bit of summer ball with my brother-in-law's team, just messing around, but I didn't work out. I didn't try anything. I wasn't hitting in the cages like I always did. I literally surrendered completely.
Said, God, you can have everything.
Yep. Everything.
Like, you know what? This ain't working. Like what I'm trying ain't getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have it. The weights, you can have the bat, you can have the glove, you can have the bench rack, This ain't working.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And now, years and years later, I can explain some of this stuff. But the thing I realized that all those things were good. I mean, working out is good, lifting weights is good, running, eating, all that stuff is good.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not blessed, it's not going to work.
Oh, we got to go here. Can we go here real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's this story. I think I'm going to go. I think what I want to unpack as you're saying this is in the book of Daniel. There's a specific word that is used in there that I want to find. So Daniel is, let me think about this first. So Daniel 1, what happens? I'm trying to visualize this. So Daniel is with Hananiah. Those are their Hebrew names, but it's Meshach, Abednego, and Shadrach, right? And so the king is like, yo, I want y'all to, everybody, he's ordering this thing saying everybody is eating certain food, drinking wine, and learning a language, right? I think it's Daniel 1. I'm trying to think. So I'm trying to picture where it's at. I believe it's Daniel 1. And Daniel says, he tells the guy that's responsible for him and all the guys, making sure that everyone does it. Daniel goes like, yo, I can't put that inside of me. Like, how about you give me, I think he said 10 days. Might be 10 days. Yeah. Am I in the book? 13. Okay, I'm in there. So I think he tells the guy like, hey, test me after 10 days. And if after 10 days, correct me if I'm wrong, after 10 days, if you feel like we ain't meeting the standard, I'll get on your meal plan. I'll get on your workout plan. Okay. See how we look compared. So they go the 10 days, and scripture, I believe, says that when the man that they had, they looked better. Yeah. They looked stronger. He had weight. I don't remember if it was a percentage, but it was better than the other guys. And then it said that Daniel he was given the gift of like wisdom, discernment, just like God blessed him. And so what I hear is that you were in a season where you said, you know what? I'm giving, if it ain't God, it ain't for me right now.
Yep.
And God took care of that for you.
Yes.
Man.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And,
so good.
And looking back now, I see his hand in so many things. There were so many things he took care of without me trying.
Right.
And, yeah, we got past that season. I had a great season. I got drafted, so I had an opportunity to play some professional ball. But through that, not only did God give me baseball back, so to speak, but he provided my wife's family, which led to my wife and I started liking each other, even though we knew each other, but we didn't have that connection yet. So that was also a result of all of this.
Right.
But looking back now, that was the main thing. God, going back to marriage and family and what's really important in life. When I look at baseball and that time of my life, and I look at baseball and all that I've been through in professional baseball, the one thing that has always been steady, stable, and has been the source of my well-being is my family. And of all the things that I've questioned in my life, should I have gone there, taken this job, or the one thing I've never questioned has been my marriage.
That's good.
The love for my wife is something that's never wavered.
Come on.
I have doubted my job. I have doubted so many things that I've done in my life, but the love that I have for my wife and my kids and the value that I place on my marriage, it's never been in question.
Wow.
That is the one thing, and I told my wife this to encourage her sometimes when I make her mad. But you are the one thing that I've never questioned.
Mm.
I mean, I question myself all the time. I've questioned my job many times, and I can't. I won't say I had that many regrets in life, but there's a lot of things that I question. Had I done this different? That is the one thing that I don't ever question.
The best decision.
Yeah.
Come on.
And the only reason I was able to accept that benching and that situation is because God has something better. And so if I compare what God has given me through baseball, I didn't become a major league player like I set out to do, like what I was dreaming of. I became a major league strength coach, which is pretty close. But in spite of that, what he really wanted to give me was a beautiful wife and beautiful kids and a beautiful family. And that to me has always been my sense of value, has been as a husband, as a father, not necessarily as a strength coach. So when people talk to me about my job and the things that I've done, a lot of that stuff doesn't make any sense to me. It never. I have never felt any more special or less special because of the jobs or the things or the places that I've been, because that's never been my source of value.
Right.
My source of value has been as a father and as a husband.
Come on.
And all the things that I've accomplished on the job, the good, the bad, whatever, I value them as anyone else would value their job. But as far as whether that makes me a man or more of a man or less of a man, it's never really make any impact in the way that I am and what I think of myself.
I think what you're saying is it's heavy from the sense of it holds a lot of weight, because so many young men put their self-worth, their identity, right, in what they do. And like you said, man, like I went from being benched to giving my life to Christ, and now having a wife and kids that will always outweigh anything else I may accomplish in this world.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is it's I would love that any athlete that is in playing select ball, playing high school, college, majors, like if you're watching this, I need you to really grab hold of what he is saying, because I've seen it. We talked about this. I've seen guys at the top, top 5 or top 10 in their position, right? And not have what we're talking about, not have a relationship with God, not have a healthy relationship with their spouse. Might have been in and out of 4 or 5 marriages, right? You have a healthy relationship with your kids, and that's something that I can actually watch from the outside and see, you know? And there are guys that make it to the top, but they leave their family at the bottom. There are guys that go up and they get the chip, but they leave the family on the ship, stranded in the sea. You on land and you celebrating. God didn't call us to do that.
Yeah. And, looking back at all the years and all the players that I was privileged to work with, some of the most talented, wealthy guys were some of the most miserable guys. The most balanced and stable guys were the ones that had a healthy marriage and had a healthy relationship with their kids. Some of my favorite players, and I was privileged to work with really good players, talented, that had that stability at home. And of all the ones, obviously not everybody is a Christian that I've worked with or been around, but I can honestly say that the guys that were most stable were the ones that had stable homes, the ones that were good fathers, were good husbands, enjoyed their kids. I remember listening to many guys over the years, like, I can't wait to go on the road so I can get away from home. Hearing comments like that, it always stung to hear. It's like, dang, how could someone just not want to be with their kids or
Right.
their wife? And I get it. I mean, like, obviously, not,
We don't know everybody's story.
we don't know everybody's story and whatever.
Yeah.
But those comments always stuck with me.
Yeah.
But I can honestly say that the guys that were my favorite, the guys that I admired the most, the guys that I thought were really good ball players and good men were the ones that had stable families.
Right.
And so, to me, there's a relationship or correlation between a man's well-being and stability with their stability of their home. And I always felt like the guys that took care of their home also took care of business on the field, took care of their business at work. And to me, they seemed, the most happy, the most put together. Tomorrow they're going to celebrate Adrian Beltre's induction to the Hall of Fame.
Whew.
And that guy's, to me, one of the top 5 fathers that I've seen in the big leagues.
Wow.
And
that says a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yes. I mean, he's one of my favorites. Like, I have about 10 favorites in 22 years. But he's one of my top because not only was he a great player, but he was a good father.
And this is huge coming from you because you get to see, and we've talked about this, like God blessed me an opportunity to travel, to be with players and get to see. There's times I would be with the player's family and how they would proactively take care of the family, make sure the family is set up so that they don't feel like they're just like forgotten about. You know what I mean? Like, hey, if we travel in certain places, like the family going too, or if it's in the off season, they're like, look, I could train over here, but I'm training at home because I want to be with my family.
Yep.
Right. And so we've gotten to see what you're talking about. And so for him to be in the top 5, that just goes to tell you that he has his priorities different. There's some different priorities that are on his mind.
Yeah, and because of the conversations that I've had with many players over the years, the way they talked about their families, it always spoke volumes to me. It always interested me, and my level of respect would grow according to how they spoke about their families and their marriage, and those kind of guys impressed me more. I gravitated toward those guys more. Those guys tended to be a little bit more respectful to everyone, not just, they love their families, but they were respectful to the staff, to the coaches, to everyone around them. There was such a correlation between their stability of their home and the way they went about their business. And so that's something that always stuck out to me.
Let me read this real quick. We've been going through this this series talking about the portrait of Jesus, and our pastor was talking about this this particular verse that, ironically, I had actually preached on this verse, not even knowing he was going to use this verse. God, it's so cool. But it's Mark 12, and this is the religious leaders just kind of trying to question Jesus about what the greatest commandment is, right? And so it's Mark 12, and I'm going to read 28. I'm going to try to give all context. So it says, one of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well, so he asks, of all the commandments, which is the most important? Jesus replied, the most important commandment is this: listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. This is the part I want to tie in. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. No other commandment is greater than these. Mr. Beltre, you've seen him loving his neighbor. That would be his family and those at work. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that this man understands love, right? And we're commanded, like, love people. Mm-hmm. And it encourages me that we have men out there that actually get it. It's like, you know what? I could be on the road and I could train in the off season over here. And even if they do, Some of them still make trips back and forth. You know, they may fly their family up. And so it is beautiful when we can hear that, because there are probably players in the locker room that don't know his heart like that doesn't know that, man, like, this is a man that loves his family and loves people, right? And so I hope if you're hearing this, you're encouraged to know, like, whatever locker room you may be in, whatever sport you may be playing, understand that you can actually be in the field of the marketplace. You can be in professional sports, and you can have a relationship with God. You can love people, and you can be a faithful husband and a faithful father.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah, and I've seen it. I've had some good ones. I think it's important for young athletes to remember that you can't be faithful and follow God and love Jesus and be one of the guys. But as a follower of Christ, and the more you learn about what God wants from us, you learn how to set boundaries, how to set guidelines for yourself. All these guys that I'm talking about that I always admired, not just because they were good ball players, but the good fathers and husbands, they all had clearly delineated boundaries for themselves and for the people around them. You know, they could still go out to dinner with the rest of the guys, but when it was time to go to the club, no, I'm going to my hotel.
Ooh,
you know,
hold tight, because this is something and this is what I learned working with guys, like having boundaries. I call it community and boundaries, right? You got to have the right community around you, because Scripture tells us, hey, bad character corrupts good company, right? Yes. So, but you have to have these boundaries. Like, it's not just good enough just to have the right community. We must have boundaries. And sometimes I mix that A word with accountability, right? Because we do need accountability with our community, and they help us hold these boundaries. But we've seen it, and people have seen it. You can have the guy that's at the top, and if they might have the right community, but if they don't have these boundaries, what usually happens?
Yeah, all it takes is one bad decision, being at the wrong place at the wrong time, to ruin a career, or to ruin a person professionally,
right?
Especially these type of guys. But it is doable. You know, you can hang out in the clubhouse, cut up with the guys, mess around, you know, do all the silly things that athletes do. But there's the ones that maintained a certain level of integrity. They all had boundaries that they kept for themselves, and they let people know. No, you know what? I don't do that.
Right.
You know what, brother? You go ahead, man. I'm going to stay here. Those guys were very, very clear. And the other thing I want to say about that is those guys that do that, they know who they are.
Oh, going back to identity.
Yeah, they know who they are. They know that I could still be good with you. You and I could be buddies and hang out up to this point. But if you go past that line, I'm going to stay right here, because that is not beneficial for me. Just like the Bible says, anything is permissible, but not everything's beneficial. So you might think that that's how you let off steam, or that's how you need to get over your 4 strikeouts tonight. But you know what? I'm going to go home to my wife, or I'm going to go home and go get some rest because I got to play tomorrow. You know, so those guys always knew who they were, and they always kept their mission, their vision for themselves always in front of them. They, you know, because the good ones, they always had this this vision, this self statement that this is who I am and this is what I'm following. I'm not deviating from this. You know, I might do a little thing here and there, but ultimately, I want to be a great player. Ultimately, I want to be a great husband. Ultimately, I want to be a great father. So, because I have this vision, I always ask myself, is this help me with my vision? With, you know, or is this going to derail me or take me away from what I'm trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And whether because we're talking sports a lot, you know, if you want to win a championship, you always have to have that mentality. Is like, if I want to be a champion, everything that I do matters. And so anything that comes my way, I have to always judge it against that.
Right.
Is this going to make me better? And so we're constantly having to have that conversation with ourselves every day. And the good ones always figure out a way to, yeah, I could do that. Or you know what? No, that's not gonna help me accomplish my goals, or that's gonna take me away from where I'm going. So you go ahead.
Right.
I'm gonna stay right here. So
And I think that that's important to say because there are the situations that if we don't have that type of mindset, we're going to create our own challenges. I mean, the enemy's already upset. Says the thief he's there to steal, kill, and destroy. But sometimes we make it too easy, and he ain't got to do nothing because we set ourselves up to walk through consequences that are unnecessary because we don't have those boundaries, right? And the enemy's like, man, you did the work for me. I didn't even have to do nothing, all right? But when we have the right people in our life, we have the right community, when we have the right accountability, and when we have the right boundaries, it allows us to get to the place that God has for us and not have to walk through the consequences that we've created along the way. That's so good. Speaking of pain, winning a championship, it's not easy. You've been in the game for a while. And I would imagine that knowing from what I know on the backside of working with NFL players, MLB players, NBA players, WNBA, singers, hockey, that might be it. And then down to the collegiate level, D1, you name it. Working with players is hard. Working with an organization can be difficult. It's not easy because you got a lot of people working together for one mission, and that's to win. Everybody wants to win, right? Little Timmy, from the time he's like 2, people are saying he's gonna be the guy. I mean, we've heard it. Oh yeah, he's the next one. You've been in the game for a long time. There's the beautiful side that everyone sees. Man, you got the chip. A lot of times people don't know the challenges that come with it. And if they don't have the right mindset, they can see those challenges as just coincidence, and really miss what God was doing in and through their lives the entire time. Has there been a moment, or can you even speak to that? Because I would imagine you've done it for some time. But I know that God has revealed some things to you, that he had been working all things together the entire time. He's had his hand on it. He's the master of the blueprint.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've been able to watch you from afar, and we've just always been in kind of, passing conversation connection. And I've just been able to see how you have just withstood seasons in this field. And God has just built your spiritual muscles, been able to watch this. And I think that there's something beautiful in your story that I think would bless those that are going to have the opportunity to see this.
Yeah. Man, you said so many things that I was trying to follow you, and then I was like, okay, now how do I hit that?
Wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to go. We got
Okay.
time. We got time.
Okay, so the biggest thing that I would say is winning is the hardest thing you could ever do. Successful people, a lot of times we see successful people on TV and athletes and celebrities and stuff like that, but what people don't see is the behind the scenes and how hard it was to get there. A lot of people wish that they were there, but they're not willing to do what it took to get there. A lot of people, we all have celebrity, a lot of us have celebrity crushes, or we're starstruck, or we're wishful that we were like this guy or that guy. And but what we don't know is what that person went through to get to that spot. And so when it comes to winning championships and going back to Tom Brady and some of the things that I've experienced and some of the guys that I got to work with this year, some of these guys are really, really special athletes. And some of the things that some of these guys have gone through in their careers is very, very hard and sometimes even sad. The things they've lost, the things that they've gone through, and so as people in this area celebrate the World Series, and it's awesome, but there's a lot of hard work, it's blood, sweat, and tears that a lot of guys on that team put forth, and a lot of things that a lot of those guys have been through in their lives, personal lives, to get to this point, and everybody gets to celebrate. But what those guys have been through, I don't think if someone said to you, "Hey, you're gonna go through this, this, and this, and this, so you can get a championship," a lot of people would say, like, maybe it's not worth it.
I agree.
So
100%.
yeah, so like a lot of people wish we had somebody else's life, but if you were told what that person went through, I don't think you would want it.
So can we talk? Can we pin that real quick? There was the season I was working with a player. I'm not going to say who this is, but there's a season, and I didn't know this, but there was a season I was working with this guy, and man, I could tell something was up. Like he just wasn't himself. And I could tell through, so it's a phone conversation. And I was able to unpack it in the off season. And what he was explaining to me was during that moment we were having this conversation, he was real authentic with me afterwards. He didn't tell me exactly what was going on then, but he said, man, when you walk into a locker room, especially for this particular sport, it's football. Most would end up figuring this out. But when you walk into your locker room, you're looking at your locker to see if there is a slip on there. Mm-hmm. And so what happens with, and I don't know if this is with baseball, because I don't know if my baseball guys have ever said this, but for football, if that slips on there, it's one of two things. You're probably cut. Mm-hmm. And so to have that on your mind, the heaviness of that, and still try to press through whatever it is you're getting ready to go through, right? Like it's a team meeting or it's looking at film or maybe it's going to the weight room. And maybe you come out the weight room and you go back to the locker and you're wondering, is today my day? Mm-hmm. The mental strain that's on an individual that wants to win is at a whole nother level, at that high level.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, and baseball, it's not that obvious when they cut you. Sometimes they come get you and they take you to the office. So they try to be a little more sneaky. So that I wouldn't say that's a big one, but the one thing I do know about baseball players is that baseball is such a high failure game. If you're a really good hitter, good hitters, not so much today, is a little lower, but people always say it's 300. Well, that means that 70%, you failed 70%. And when you fail that, when you're on that other half of 70%, ESPN is talking about it, MLB Network's talking about it, everybody's talking about it. There's always incentives and contracts, like if you pitch 150 innings for the team, and you have a so-so contract, you got to get to the 150 inning mark so that you can get X bonus and that bonus, and you're not pitching good, so the organization may not be wanting to pitch you because they don't want to pay you that money. So now you're kind of like thinking, all right, I got to get to 150 innings so that I can get my $2 million, and then this guy, but I'm not pitching good, and I could tell that they're cutting me back on innings, and that's a common one. When they're playing pretty good and they're up, it's at the end of the year is going to be arbitration or they're going to be free agent. They're playing over here, but they're comparing themselves to this guy down the street, to this other team. So and so got this much money, I should be getting that much money. Or as silly and stupid as, I don't have a good parking spot. I mean, this is about as dumb as I've heard, but that's a real story. So the things that go through these guys' heads, you'll be amazed how much stress, self-imposed stress they put on. And I get it. There's a lot of people fighting for their attention, and a lot of people want a piece of them, and they're trying to focus on these 3 hours of baseball that they got every night. But it's a real thing, and the stress, it goes from. I've known guys that told me that their dad text them and says, "Man, you still stink. I can't believe you swung at that pitch yesterday." From guys that their wives have texted them before the game, "I hope you go 0 for 4. You should have done this and this and this before you left today." I mean, I've heard some crazies.
This is why, man, if I was on your team, thank you, Lord, for bringing this man into my life, because all of the stuff that goes on, we got to have godly community around us. We have to.
Yep.
This is why, like, your role, they may have saw you as a strength coach, but you were a spiritual coach for the team. I pray that these guys understand that, because, bro, like, you have been sowing spiritual seeds into these players, and they know the weight that goes behind winning. And your role was so much more larger than a strength coach. You were a spiritual coach, because there is a lot that goes in and out of when they wake up in the morning, before their feet hit the ground, before they get to the office. They're already thinking about some things.
Mm-hmm.
But when I can walk in, just like how you walked in and you saw the chaplain that was pursuing you, they can walk in and say, "Oh, that's my brother in Christ right there."
Mm-hmm.
I have a safe space. The things I may be going through, the things I may be dealing with, I have a safe space. And my identity, he told me, Jose told me, my identity is in Christ. Regardless of how I play, or the phone call I got before I stepped up on the mound, or the phone call I got before, we got to the practice facility from my dad or from my wife, Jose said, he reminded me that my identity is in my daddy, not in this thing that I'm doing. Man, thank you so much, bro. Like, I am, this is why I wanted to have this conversation, because I know what it's like to be behind the guys and trying to encourage them and let them know, like, man, I know you're down. I know you got people pressing you because you ain't playing well. Or I know you got people, only there because of what they can get from you, not because of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and going back to some of the topics that we've been talking about is, when it comes to understanding how God uses all things to work for our good. As I grew up and I grew in faith, I was able to evaluate my situation back in Tennessee in a way that it wasn't that problem that I had with that coach. It wasn't that I wasn't hitting. It wasn't that I didn't work hard enough. It wasn't all those. It was the way God was moving. That man, that situation, this other thing, God was using all those things for my good.
Come on.
And, like right now, this year is the last year that I'm going to be working as a strength coach for the Rangers. And right now I'm stepping into a new season of work. And so I'm going through a time right now where I don't have clarity. And I can look back at that situation that happened 1992, where we're at 30 something years later. I can take that faith, that experience with God, how he, like I always tell people, God promised the promised land. They got to the promised land, but there were giants. There were things to accomplish. There were things that they still had to deal with.
Come on, talk to him.
And so
he in the book.
So he moved me out of Tennessee. I got married. All those things took me years to get over the fact to get over my thinking that it was that coach that did that. No, God used that person. God used a lot of people in the characters of the Bible in their life to move them. Or you go here now. Now you go here there. And right now, I feel like I'm going through a period like that too, where I'm going to be entering into a new phase of my career, What that is, I still don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. But the one thing I do know is that I can talk to my father, just like I did 30 something years ago,
Come on.
and he's gonna open doors, and he's gonna open a door that I'm gonna walk in, and I'm gonna walk in, and I'm gonna run into some giants, and I'm gonna trust him, and then knock down those giants and continue.
Come on.
And so, as an athlete, if you can, if you walk with God close enough, and you learn to renew your mind and change your perspective, and that the way you see people and situations, you see them as God's, using it for your good, then you don't hate that person. You don't hate that situation. You don't stress out as much about it. When I was younger, yeah, that Tennessee thing crushed me. It took me many, many years to realize that it wasn't about that coach or it wasn't about people, but it was about God moving me in a different direction. Right now, I think that God is moving me in a different direction. All the years in baseball, I think it took me a long time to also realize that I wasn't just there for the physical training. I was there for the spiritual
Come
training,
on.
and I started to realize that I'm more than a strength coach. I'm there to coach the person. I'm not here to coach squats. Um, and so it took me a long time to get there too. But through all these experiences, through good and bad, good people, bad people, good situations, bad situations, the one thing is has always been true. God has always sustained me, and because of that, He's given me the wisdom and the insight to see how some things were necessary.
Right.
Some people were necessary in my life. Some things were necessary at a given period of time to move me,
Mm.
to move things, to show me different things. And right now, we just celebrated the World Series. Awesome time. Best sports moment of my career. Um, it's everything I ever dreamed of as a kid, as a baseball player.
Can you, you told me something pretty unique about your. I want to put a pin. We'll come back to
Yeah.
it, but I think it's important. Like your relationship with your wife, like you share a lot with her, and you shared, something with me when we were, at the crib. You was like, man, like it was just this feeling, like I just spending time with God, and I just felt like, man, there was just something about to happen, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and you were pretty confident about that. You like, like because what I got was that your time with God was special, and He confirmed some things, and you were just like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know I heard from the Lord on that.
Yeah. Yeah. This year was challenging, but because my my go to every morning is to spend time with the Lord, and so I as the year went on and some of the things that were happening, and um, I started to realize that maybe this was it.
Mm.
Maybe it's time to move on to something else. Maybe this is the the challenges, the people, the problems, the pinnacle of baseball. He was mixing up all these things for my good to move me to a next phase of life. Um, because this year was really full of wonderful things, a championship, really good baseball, got to be part of a really good team, work with some really good players, but I had some very, very, very disappointing situations. I was very disappointed by certain people that I thought were my friends. And I was telling a friend the other day that a lot of the things that I went through this year, I don't think I would have handled as well if it wasn't for my faith and for some of the things that I've gone through in the past with my baseball. As a
Mm.
player, from some difficult situations I went through with the Rangers maybe about 6, 7 years ago. Some of the things that I've gone through on the job and relying on God and how He sustained me, how He got me through those things is what helped me get through this year.
Mm.
So this year is awesome and as great as the sound of a World Series championship the Texas Rangers, it sounds to everyone. To me, it was a mixed thing. It was the highs of highs and lows of lows, and it was a good mix of things that I really believe that is what God. I really believe that this is what God is doing to move me to the next phase. I really believe that all these things, all these people, all these situations are part of my story, and it's part of what God is using for my good, for whatever is next. And you know, another thing that I do want to say on that is I encourage all athletes, all people in general. When you're going through tough times, that's the best time to go out and help people.
That's good.
Whenever you're going through times where you feel like you're alone, or you're not being appreciated, or you're not, you can't count on people. You get all kinds of insecure feelings that all of us get. That's the best time to go out and help somebody. That's the best time to make sure that you're looking for other people to serve, other people to help. Because the best way to get over yourself is to serve other people. So
So good.
that is the one thing that I will walk away from this year. As tough as it got at times, I made sure that chapel happened. As tough as it got at times, I made sure that if the chaplain didn't show up, I did it. If I was having trouble with this one guy, at least I was pouring into this one guy over here, because I always felt like no matter what happens, no one's gonna take my time away from God. Nobody's gonna
So good.
Nobody's gonna keep me from God, no matter how bad things get. And so, when you find yourself as an athlete, when you find yourself down in the dumps for whatever reason, whether you're going through slumps or you're on a bench or you're having trouble with your coach or whatever it is, find someone to serve. Find some good to do outside of yourself, because it'll help you. It'll help you get out of yourself, and it'll help you trust in God, because then you're taking care of other people's needs while God takes care of your needs.
Let's just go ahead and get in the book on this then. Let's talk about this. So this is Galatians. I'm gonna go Galatians 5, and then I'll jump into 6. I'll have to pinpoint the 1 and 6 I want to read, but those who belong to Christ Jesus have nailed the passions and the desires of their sinful nature to his cross and crucified them there. Since we are living by the Spirit, let us follow the Spirit's leading in every part of our lives. Meaning, when we're going through something, go serve somebody. Let the Spirit lead you. Let us not be conceited or provoke one another or be jealous of one another. That's in 5. Like, that is, come on, so good. So often when we are wounded, we will find ourselves looking at our wounds when we could actually wrap our wounds and go serve someone. Like you were saying. It's so good. So good. And I would imagine, I say imagine, and this is not just for professional sports. I think it's just in life in general. We will find ourselves in situations where we will be let down, because we do live in a world where it's, sinful people, and, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. But, especially for followers of the way, it can be difficult at times because we want the best for people. Right. And then we try to do it. We're not perfect, but we try to take care of people, but sometimes people get selfish. Sometimes people are looking out for themselves. Sometimes people have an agenda, right? Sometimes people they have an identity insecurity, right? They have an identity inadequacy. We're going to talk about this tomorrow night. And because of that, they find themselves doing things that impact you because they don't know who they are. And I've said this before. You show me somebody who don't know who they are, I'll show you somebody that don't know where they're going. And unfortunately, it was way too much of that because we're all trying to climb to get to the top to get something that will never confirm who we are. The chip doesn't confirm my identity.
Mm-hmm.
All the chip is it's an opportunity for me to use so that I can give him glory. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that's it. And I don't know if you saw the have you seen this video of what is this young man's name? What's the QB's name? That they cut his clip.
C.J. Stroud. Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty bold move
Mm-hmm.
to say I'm gonna cut God out of something. He ain't even got the championship yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this young man is like, look, like what you saying, look, like, first, I'm going to give glory to God before we start talking about all this other stuff. Like, yes, we won the game, or I had a good game, or whatever, but let's just slow down and let's just make sure we honor Abba Father first,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it appears that somebody had an identity insecurity going on and said, let's clip this up because I don't want him ruining, my whatever recording or whatever it was. What?
Yeah.
Selfish, self-centered, blind, and unfortunate.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. And to encourage athletes or encourage the people listening, because no one here is perfect.
Correct.
You always
No
got
perfect people allowed.
Exactly. And so you always have to remember you're going to let people down. So no matter how good you try to be in whatever circle you are, you're going to let people down. You're going to offend people. That's just the part of life. Just like they're going to offend you, they're going to let you down. And so, but the ultimate purpose is to point people to Jesus. So if you do something with the intention of pointing people to Jesus, God knows your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it didn't seem like you accomplished anything or you let somebody down or whatever, God knows your heart. So we're called to point people to Jesus. We're called to plant seeds, to water the seeds.
Come on.
God is the only one that's going to make that change. And so sometimes
Boys in the book.
you're going to let people down.
Better go look that up. Paul and Apollos. We talked about that, and God grows. Come on.
Yeah. And you're gonna let people down. And a lot of times in baseball, this happens a lot. It might not necessarily be about Jesus, but a lot of times there's some good guys on the team who do some good things, who have good habits, who carry themselves well, but perhaps they're not doing well. And you tell them, hey man, so and so, you need to kind of talk to him and get him to do the right thing. You better get that guy to be on time or get that guy to do the right things. And they'll be like, excuse me, I don't know if I could do that because I'm not playing very well right now. I'm not good enough right now to get on somebody. But I said, but you do the right things. I mean, you may not be playing well right now, but
Right.
You're doing your heart's in the right place. You're doing the right things. You could be an example to this person. You can encourage this person to right their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to them. You don't have to have it perfect for you to help somebody or counsel somebody. So my point is, you don't have to be the perfect Christian to point somebody to Jesus. The Word of God is going to do what the Word of God is going to do. God is going to do what He's going to do with that person. It's not your job to weigh the results. It's your job to just go ahead and point them to Jesus. And so the one thing that I kept telling myself all year long, you know what? Some things are not working out around here. I know. I could tell. I feel it. But you know what? That's not going to keep me from organizing chapel. That's not going to keep me from
So good.
the few guys that are actually that I'm pouring into, that I'm talking to about God, that I'm helping. Just because these guys don't want it and they might be against me, that's not going to keep me from these guys over here. And just because you don't think you got it together, that doesn't mean that you can't help somebody. Whether it's through word, deed, money, whatever. Just never doubt your ability to help somebody just because you don't feel it because if you don't,
Mm.
if you go by your feelings, you never do anything.
Come
Most of us
on.
won't do anything. So
Jose, you
when
better
you find
preach, man.
yourself in a bad situation where you feel less than, when you feel insecure, that's the perfect time to actually go do something for somebody, because that's what's going to get you out of that mess.
Come on.
And so,
So let's. I'm gonna read the scripture, but let's talk about like one more rep, right? So, and this is when you're saying this, I see everything with a picture. Like it's like, man, I'm fatigued. It's that Friday workout after we've been working out all week, right? And now I'm like, man, like you want me to do one more rep, Jose? One more rep? Yes, one more rep. But you just said one more 5 times ago. One more. And it's when we're tired, right? So Galatians 6, here we go. Galatians 6:9. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Therefore, they say if it says therefore, you got to see what it's there for. Why? Because it's therefore because we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up. Whenever we have the opportunity, and this is what you were saying, we should do good to everyone. Not some, not a few, not a couple, everyone, especially to those in the family of the faith. Like you just preached that.
Yep.
Like, don't give up. Don't give up. Especially to those in the family and the faith. When things ain't going right, I'm still gonna do chapel. When there's man, whether we having a bad season, a good season, whether things are rocky or things are smooth, whether we are going up beside still waters or we're in the valley, we're still gonna do good things. We're still gonna do good things. And I think it would be beneficial if we were to kind of unpack that from like a strength training perspective, right? Bible tells us, man, that physical training is good, but spiritual training is much more beneficial in this life and the life to come. 1 Timothy. And so I think it would be good for us to kind of maybe see if we can tie in the value of that one extra workout, that the value of that one extra rep, the value of when one thinks, man, I can't do it anymore. I can't give it anymore. And we're like, no, you can. I know you're tired. But there's something on the other side of that. That one extra rep may give you 20 extra pounds of a swing. That one extra rep may give you a little bit more force to drive through the hips. You're seeing it as one rep. But it's the same thing that you said is when what you went through back at Tennessee, God was just preparing you for just recent. There's a benefit of understanding that he does not waste anything that we're going through.
Yep.
Anything. He doesn't waste the wait. He never wastes the wait, whether it's the time that we're waiting or it's the weight that we are lifting. The Lord never wastes the wait, whether it's the W-A-I-T or the W-E-I-G-H-T. He doesn't waste the wait.
And I've had this conversation. I think it's Rick Warren that has a message that God doesn't waste pain. I think he's got a sermon series on that, and I've heard other preachers talk about that. But I've had that conversation with players, and I had that conversation with a player a couple of years ago, and I remember sending him this podcast, that God doesn't waste our pain, or because he was going through a hard time in his personal life and the baseball life, and he was complaining to me about playing time and all kinds of things, and there was a lot of things that he was struggling with, and where I went with it, instead of the baseball thing, I sat him down. I said, you know what? God doesn't waste our pain. And I said, think about it this way. You're about to get married, one day hopefully you're a father, and if you look at it this way, right now you're going through a hard time, but think about when your kids come and your kid's having a hard time, and you're going to be able to tell him or tell her how you overcame this situation. You're going to use this pain, this bad situation, to teach your kids something.
That's good.
And sometimes you gotta think about not the pain of what you're going through right now, is what that pain is going to give you.
Come on.
And so, because usually these conversations take place in the weight room, I said, okay, remember how we lift weights. You have pain for a couple of days, you recover, now you're a little stronger. It's the same thing.
Come on.
You know,
That's
you go
good.
through a period of pain, stress, disappointment. You go through that period, then you spend some time recovering, and you come out the other end a little stronger. Sometimes you see great things, and you have wonderful successes, but then sometimes all you really have is just, you know what, I can lift 5 more pounds than I did last month.
Come
Or
on.
I'm a little faster. Or now I can throw the baseball a little bit harder, or, you know. So, and sometimes they're not great, miraculous results, but there's always some benefit through that pain when you come out the other end. And so sometimes if we have a relationship with Jesus, we're constantly pursuing him, he gives us the wisdom to be able to sit back after the pain, because a lot of times when you're going through it, you can't see. You know, that's what they call it. You know, that's why they call it. I lost my train of thought. We walk by faith, not by sight.
Right.
When you're in the middle of it, you can't see much. That's why you take it step by step. But you also want. I encourage people, pray in the middle of it, so that when it does end, that you can sit back and say, you know what, that he was putting me through. This is what I learned. Learning. I mean, I always tell my son this. Everybody wants to win, and losing is bad. Nobody likes to lose. The only way that losing is good is if you learn something from it.
Come on.
You know, and the only way you're going to be able to learn from losing is if you have the wisdom to sit back and reflect and evaluate and just try to see if you learned something.
That's good.
Because losing sucks for everybody. Nobody likes to lose. I never heard anybody, you know what, I want to lose this championship, or I want to lose this game. But what I do see a lot is when people lose, they blame the wrong things. They put they start pointing fingers at other people, and they start pointing the finger at all the things that it wasn't. And the only way that losing is beneficial is when you actually learn something from it. And if you don't ask for wisdom while you're going through the pain, or wisdom after it, so you can see what it was that God was showing you, then the losing's going to sting. You're going to learn it from it, and you're going to lose again, because it's going to happen again.
Facts.
You know, it's like Joyce Meyer says a lot. You keep failing the test, you're going to take it again. You know, so you might, if you're going to fail again, you might as well learn something from that last failure. Hopefully you fail less.
Come on.
Instead of an F, maybe it's an F plus. I don't know. You know, so
Right.
So a lot of times, what it boils down to is God giving us wisdom to see what this pain meant.
Right.
Because we're all going to go through it.
Mm.
We're all going to have moments where we're just wondering, what are you doing, Lord?
Yeah.
And so,
Yes, that's so good.
No matter what it is, whether you're a father, husband, athlete, whatever it is, you have to sit with God and have those conversations, and really, really wrestle with God, so that he can show you what it is that he's trying to teach you. Because if you don't learn, man, there's nothing worse than losing and not learning.
Ooh, say that again.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Losing and not learning is probably the worst kind of pain. I think that's even worse than the pain, the first part of it. You know, like, I'd rather go through the original pain than to not learn from it, because then it's going to happen again, and it's
Right.
You know, it's almost like getting a cut and you don't treat it right. It'll heal eventually, but how do you not get cut again? Or how do you, like when you go through it, okay, I should have tended to this cut this way. So
Right.
now I don't have this huge scar.
Yeah.
Um, Scars are good, obviously. You know, that it reminds us of what happened and maybe keeps us from doing stupid things. But if you treat the wound the right way, that scar is a reminder, but it's not
Yeah, it
as
is.
bad as it wasn't or it could have been.
Or that scar, the wound can become infected,
Yeah,
and the infection can lead to
worse things.
sickness, and the sickness can lead to death.
Yeah.
Right? That's so good. So good. Man, how we doing on time? Where we at? Where we at? Just want to make sure we're respectful of time. So, bro, I think that it would be. I don't know that they would know yet because I don't know that we've truly unpacked. But God has worked all things for your good is one of your things. And by blessing you with an amazing wife and a family, in this season of transition, because you're just in the season of transition, you're walking with God through this season. And as you said, I think you said earlier, like I can't pinpoint and say I know exactly everything that God has going on. But I know even up to this point that I'm at now, that he didn't waste anything that I went through, and he's worked everything out to get me to where I'm at. For those that are going to watch this, what would you say are some, whether it's a spiritual habits, some things that you're just convinced of, like, man, these are just non-negotiables for my life that I must have in place as a foundation, because we talked about some of the guys having boundaries. But what does that look like? Because you've even shared with me that you've mentored and discipled some guys on the team. Like you have a handful of guys, like 3 or 4 that you talk to on a frequent basis. You send Bible studies, verses. But I would imagine that would be difficult to do if you're not spending time with God yourself, right? Like because it sounds like you have a pretty good grip on Matthew 28, where it says we're supposed to go and make disciples. And these guys are not just local guys. So when scripture tells us to go and make disciples of all nations, you're actually doing that, like, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you ever thought about that, but he tells us, Matthew 28, 18 through 20, to go into all the world, to make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. You can get in the book, you can check me. But this is what it says. Make disciples of all nations. Could you, really quick before we talk about like what your personal, your daily walk looks like? Because I think again, I want people that see this at your level. It isn't like you don't have time to do it. You make it a priority. But let's talk about the nations that you're discipling. Can you just name some of the? You don't have to even name the players. Let's just talk about maybe where they're from, because you're tapping into different nations.
Yes, some of the guys that I was discipling this year, Venezuela, Cuba, Dominican. So a lot of those guys are believers, guys that needed the word, wanted to spend time talking about the word.
And this is like, I got to witness this because we were at your house having lunch, and like literally somebody had texted, was like, yo, and you was like, boom, 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 this verse. Like, hungry for it. Yes, pro athletes hungry for the word of God.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was real, and I've done it for many years, with different guys, different walks of life, Christian, non-Christian, white, black, Latin, all kinds.
Oh, nations.
High school guys, college guys.
You've been you've literally been walking, like, I don't know if you've ever wrapped your mind around that, because it just clicked for me, for you, that you've been Matthew 28, like 18 through 20, you've been doing this.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of, like, we forget as followers, this is what he's called us to do.
Yeah.
This is the commission. Like, go and make disciples. And you've been doing it at the highest level, professional sports. So when we say that we don't have the time or we don't have the ability, y'all in meetings? Y'all in meetings about meetings?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all working out?
Yep.
Y'all in meetings about working out? Y'all traveling? But like I've seen it. You've done it. And I'm encouraged because I'm like, man, there's no excuse. Like, I'm just gonna be real transparent. I'm gonna be real right now. I have been wrestling for the last 2 months about a particular group of young men that I was gonna disciple. And I get ready to start the group text, and I promise you, bro, I don't know if you ever done this, but I start the group text, I put like 1 or 2 names in, and I'm like, oh man, I'm too busy. I'm already discipling people. And then I start the group text again. And then, oh, I'm too busy. Bro, I'm encouraged, man. Like I've known this, but I don't know that I've really truly wrapped my mind around the reach. Jose, there are going to be lives changed for generations that your kids will never live to see. The impact and influence that you have had by discipling for so many years with no agenda, unashamed, saying, Lord, no matter how busy we get, I'm going to make disciples of all nations, and I'm going to use this platform you've given me of baseball. Thank you. Like, if I don't get anything out of this, I got, like, after we finish, I'm starting a group text. That's my challenge. And if you're watching this, remember, keeping the kingdom is not just a saying, because he's been keeping the kingdom. It's a lifestyle, right? And I'm calling my own foul. I dropped the ball. I'm gonna be transparent and say, you know what? As soon as we finish, I'm sending that group text. I'm sending it because it's time. It's time. No excuses. Because kingdom connections, the kingdom connections that you've had with these men led to kingdom relationships and turned into kingdom impact. And their families and families and generations will be blessed because of that. Because of your commitment to say, look, man, I'm not trying to get a picture with you so I can go and take it to my kids. I'm not trying to get a picture with you to put it in my game room. I'm just sending you this text because I want you to know Jesus loves you. And I want you to know Jesus won. Plug. But that was your whole goal. And so, like, I am like this. I'm telling you, like, the light bulb just went off because I'm thinking about how long I've known you, 2007. And I know you've been doing that because I've talked to people around the league, like I've talked to people that have said that. And now I'm starting to think through the different nationalities, ethnicities, the backgrounds that you've been discipling. Because you said, you know what, I'm going to keep it kingdom. Seek the kingdom first, and everything will be added onto it. God does not waste our weight.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you know, that how do I begin to respond to all that? Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, it's I appreciate, you know, you saying that. You know, one of the things that you asked me is like, you know, what are some non-negotiables? What are you about? And the one thing that I can't say before getting into details is I always try to wrap everything up into the what's the main thing of whatever I'm into. I'm a big believer that the way you operate as a person you set those boundaries, those steps, or how you carry on. You can use that same value system to everything,
Mm.
so that you don't overcomplicate things, and so that I don't, I never made any of this very religious. It was more of, as a strength coach, I've always wanted to serve the players. I always wanted to make them better.
Mm.
And in the process, I realized that I wasn't coaching just the physical, I was coaching the spiritual. And in the process, I realized, I got to redefine who I'm coaching. I'm not coaching a baseball player, I'm coaching a person.
Soul. Yes, sir.
And
Come
so
on.
I always had this habit of collecting workouts, different types of workouts from different people that I learned from. And so I had files and files of workouts. And when somebody would say, I want to do this, oh, boom, I'll get this workout, print it out, show it to them, tweak it, whatever. Well, I started doing the same thing with the Bible. And so as I'm having conversations with these guys, and I remember a conversation that I had, I would jot down maybe like a phrase or something they said, and I look up a verse, and I would save it. And Mary,
Wait. So having a conversation, in your mind, you're already thinking, oh, I got you.
Mm-hmm.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we finna do that workout. But from the word.
Yes.
Yes, come on.
And so and that's how I relate to everyone. My wife, my kids, they say something, makes me think. Sometimes I pick up on it real quick. Sometimes I don't. But I'll go back and write down the idea and then get back to it. And then I'll think of the Bible verse, or I'll think of the reference or whatever. And I'll send them a message. Hey, listen,
So intentional.
we had this conversation the other day. This is something that, this is a verse, or this is something that'll encourage you. I do that to my kids. I do it to my wife. And for many years, I did it with the players. And it evolved from there. Sometimes it was a whole podcast sermon. Sometimes it was a little one-liner. Maybe it was a Bible verse. But it was something that they said or was happening to them that stuck to me, that I
How
thought,
did you get
what?
there? Because that's so intentional. There's an acronym I use,
Yeah.
which is the MOP. Okay? So a mop is known for cleaning up typically the mess.
Yeah.
Right? Now, a mop by itself can't do all the work, because sometimes you need some water, you need a bucket, but if you had just a bucket in the water and no mop, you just got a wetty mess.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a improper grammar.
Yeah.
So you need the mop, right? And the mop, the MOP stands for Ministry of Presence. And in order to be able to gather something from someone, I got to have the mop to grab what is present.
Mm-hmm.
Then take it and wring it out. And what you're saying is, I'm taking notes so that I can go back and collect what it is God's truth says about what you're going through. How did you get there? That is so intentional.
Well, trying to think if I can put that into words. Maybe I think one thing that I've always been a student of people.
Ooh.
For different reasons, like whether it's through physical therapy, strength and conditioning. One of the things that you have to do is watch people move. And based on their movement, you can determine what deficiencies, what if they have pain, is the movement fluid, is it efficient, that doesn't look right, all kinds of things. So you watch people move, and I still do this to this day. I'll watch people walking, and I look at them, it's like there's something wrong with that guy's hip.
Like, why is his feet?
Yeah,
and you still do that? Like,
yeah, I do that.
I did that the other day in the grocery store. I'm like, I got to stop this. I have not been training for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm watching. I'm like, why is that person's gait like?
Yeah.
Sir, your rib is your rib. Like it's there, but Never mind. You won't even understand.
Yeah, exactly. So there's only a few people that I can have this conversation with.
Right.
But when I got in the big leagues and I started this job, and I set out to become the greatest strength coach ever, and I wanted to know everything there was to know about exercise, I realized that this was way more than exercise or physical training. And I started to realize that a lot of things that I thought were a certain way were not. And that my belief in what major league players look like, acted like, were like, was completely thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And I realized, guess what? These guys are people
Yeah.
with insecurities,
Mm.
with problems, with way more problems. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to study people, and I set out for many, many years to read all kinds of psychology books, communication books, and through all my study and obviously the Bible, and I started to realize this is all about people.
Yeah.
And I know, and I started to figure out that if I pay attention and try to figure out or pick out something that they might need, 'cause not that I was right all the time, but if I hear that they're having a problem with something, or something that I know is happening to them because of the stuff I hear, and that we have a relationship, something that I can hang on to have a connection with that person, to either encourage them on that problem or
Right.
use that connection to get them to do some of the other things I needed to get them to do. And so I came up with, I don't know if it was intentional or it's just the way that I started to realize it, is that if I can connect with this person, I can get them to do whatever. And initially, my job was always to get them to work out. At the beginning, it's like trying to get baseball players to work out. It was like,
And it's not just like
Yeah,
can,
some
can we
guys-
can we be real
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the hardest clients, because we've worked with them all.
Mhm.
I've worked, we've worked with the athletes, man, CEO, you name it, little kid to person in wheelchair, you name it. The hardest athletes to train on the face of the planet, hands down, are athletes.
Yeah.
And if they've been an athlete for a long time, since they were a kid before they started training,
Yeah.
because you have to prove to them that basically you're God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can relate on that.
Yeah.
That is woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if they're good, if they're really talented, those are the
Man,
hardest
man,
ones
yeah,
to
that's a
get to
whole
work.
noth-
Yeah,
I think they're in their own category.
Yeah, that's a different, But I realized that in order for me to do my job, I needed to connect with them.
Yes.
And so I realized that the best way to connect to them is just to listen to, a little bit of their struggle, whatever it was. And so, I started to grow from there, and as I got a little more comfortable sharing my faith, what began as just casual conversations about hunting and fishing and whatever, it turned into, hey, I heard you're having problems with your dad, man. Can I pray for your dad?
Yeah.
Here's a Bible
That's
verse
good.
to encourage you, or, I heard you did this and that, or, and so it started like that. And so because of the iPhone, it's such a bad and good tool, and I would keep notes of what people said. And like if somebody said a phrase or somebody was having I would write it down and then put it away, and maybe get back to it, and then and come up with something encouraging to send to that person. And sometimes it was individuals, sometimes it was groups, and it could be anything. I mean, it was from Bible verses to quotes to a workout or some encouraging words. It became that.
So
And so I never looked at it as because believe me, God and I have wrestled a lot for many years as to why I was with the Rangers for many years. There was some years that I was like, I want to get out. Why can't I get out?
Right.
And he kept telling me, I have you here for a reason. And he kept shutting the doors. I have you here for a reason. And then I would look around and just try to reflect, try to evaluate what he was trying to show me. Look, you're organizing chapel. Look, you have 2-3 guys that need your spiritual guidance.
Wow.
And so okay, cool. All right, Dad, or Lord, I would do this I will continue to do this. I know that's not necessarily my job, but I will keep doing this because I know this is way more valuable. And I remember having one year, I think it was the COVID year, that I had this every year. I would try to figure out or come up with something that would inspire me for that year.
Okay.
And I remember the COVID year. I remember having this thought, like, I want to try to point as many people to heaven as I can, because I could tell this was going to be chaos. I could tell that was going to be very irritable. It was a very irritable and frustrating time in a major league clubhouse. It was probably it was not fun. I'll just say that. And there was a lot of tempers, a lot of stress, a lot of arguing about whether you wear a mask or not, and whether this or that. It was awful. But but I've always had that mentality. It's like, you know what? If I can point somebody to Jesus with a verse, a quote, an action, whatever, I'm good with that.
Right.
Because I know I can't change these guys. I know it's not my job to change these guys. I got a job to do, but if I can, in this pocket of this corner over here of the clubhouse, if I can touch this guy, touch that guy, and let these guys know that there's people who actually care for you beyond the baseball, that God cares for you, that I care for you, and whether that's all it is, that's what it is. Because even as a strength coach, I've never been the type that push everything on everyone. I offer solutions, and I give them pros and cons for doing one thing or another, and I leave it up to them to decide.
Yeah.
That's always been my goal, is to always present information and let them decide, because I know that I prefer to make a choice, and so I know they do too. But and I know that doesn't always come across, but I feel like my job as a believer is to point people to Jesus.
Come on.
Plant the seed, water it a little bit, and let God do what he does.
And that's in the book. Can I read this real quick? Here we go. Romans 10. Romans 10. It says, we're going to start with 9. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God, and it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. As the scriptures tells us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced. Jew and Gentile are the same in this respect. They have the same Lord who gives generously to all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. This is the part where you said, hey, this is me. But how can they call on him to save them unless they believe in him? And how can they believe in him unless they have heard about him? And how can they hear about him unless someone tells them? And how will anyone go and tell them without being sent? Because we've been sent. This is why the scriptures say how beautiful is the feet of the messengers who bring the good news. So good. Man, you're so intentional, bro. So good. Wow.
Well, thank you. But before I forget, because I want to get to the part about routines and non-negotiable, I think is what you asked initially.
Yeah.
When it comes to anything, in my opinion, the most important thing is consistency. So when it comes to working out, everyone on social media, everyone has the answers. Every diet, everybody has the answers.
Everybody.
But the one thing that they don't sell is, in order for you to get results, you got to be consistent with it. And so when it comes to all of this stuff, the one non-negotiable is every morning I'm getting up, and my first hour, 30 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, depending on where I was at, they start with God. And that's not a non-negotiable.
So good.
Because there is no way, number one, that I can get by with that God, having gone through some of the things that I've gone through in my sports career. Number two, I can't pour into people if I'm not full. So there's no way that I can be this intentional. There's no way that I can share the word of God with people if I don't have it. And so, of all the things that I've done in my life that has been consistent, and I can honestly say, probably maybe the last 10 years or so, that every morning it starts with God.
That's so good.
And so for any athlete, any person, if you don't start your day with God, it's gonna be hard.
It's gonna be real hard.
It's gonna be hard because as soon as your eyes open, the devil's ready.
Amen.
He's ready to put stuff in your head about the things you got to get done, what you didn't do, how bad you are at this, how bad you are at that. And so I know that people have their opinions on quiet times, when to do it, when not to do it. I mean, that's in my opinion, that's a matter of style. You know, we all need God, whether it's in the morning or evening, whatever.
Right.
But, you know, in my opinion, I start with God, and the more consistent that I can be with God, the better off I am.
Right.
And so when it comes to all these things that we just talked about, none of that stuff would have been possible. None of that stuff would have even entered my head if I hadn't been spending time with God and Him showing me how much I can help by just giving someone a word of encouragement, listening to them, being specific to whatever you heard from them. And it had nothing to do with having a formal ministry or having a logo or
Come on.
you know, doing all kinds of things that people equate to ministry. I realized that I can serve by just a tactful word at the right time. I learning, as I got to know guys, and I realized these guys don't need a workout. This guy just needs me to stand next to him and talk to him a little bit.
Come on.
This guy doesn't need flexibility. This guy just is worried about his kid, or he's worried about his mom, or he's worried about his wife, or, you know, he's having this problem or that problem. That's all this guy cares about. He doesn't care about the workout. And so I realized there was more important things than just the workouts. And none of that stuff would have been possible or would have even entered my mind because God put that stuff in my head. In my reading here, I realized how the value of doing things like that, even especially when I didn't feel right myself. There was many times where a lot of the stuff that I was doing, there were during some of the worst times that I was having, maybe mentally, spiritually, you know, whatever was going on. God put it in my heart that, you know what, the best way to get over yourself is to go help these guys.
Wow.
Especially because a lot of times we form this opinion like, these guys don't need me, they're millionaires. You know, and so I have to get over that too, because I went through that period too, where some guys are like, why do I even have to help this guy? This guy makes $20 million a year. This guy's got it made. Well, no, he doesn't, because $20 million don't buy you eternity. So like,
say that again.
So all those things, God was reshaping the way I saw these guys. And so, you know, I figured this is the least I could do. And sometimes it was great. There was moments of great conversations, continuous discipleship. Sometimes it was just a one-off and, one word or two here and there. But I never really worried about the results. I just did it. Whatever was in front of me, I just did it. If I had the opportunity to do it, I would do it, and just let God deal with the results. But none of this stuff would be possible if I didn't make it intentional. Every day I set my alarm so that I can get up, so I can have my quiet time, no matter where I'm at. When I'm traveling, whatever.
Wow.
I always set an alarm to make sure that I wake up at least an hour before I go anywhere, so I can have my quiet time.
Wow. Love that.
That's just non-negotiable.
Wow. Bro, that is, oh man, that is such a blessing to hear, because again, people could think, man, you've made it to that level. you got all the time in the world. You know, that's exactly what they'll think. Oh, these pro athletes, they just got all the time because they got all the money and all the success. No, y'all busy. And the other beautiful part I like about what you said, not only have you been intentional with spending time with God because you know that he puts people in your life on purpose, is that these people are human. And workout's great, but some of them need some work in.
Yeah.
And this scripture came to mind. I was like, okay, where is this at? So, man, when we talk about serving people, even during hard times, Paul the Apostle gets shipwrecked. You know the story? So he gets shipwrecked, right? And he goes to the island of Malta, and it's cold, it's raining. I don't know if it was cold, but I think it was said it was raining or something like that. So I'm just giving a little context to it. So it's raining. He goes by a fire and gets bit by a snake. Shakes the snake off. He goes to a guy's house, and I'm going to read this. It says, near the shore where they landed was an estate belonging to Publius, the chief official of the island. So there's somebody that he might have a little influence. He welcomed us and treated us kindly for 3 days. As it happened, Publius' father was ill with a fever. Paul went in and prayed for him. And laying hands on him, he healed him. Then the other sick people on the island came and were healed. Say, what? Hold on. No. This man just got shipwrecked. He out here sharing the gospel. He's going through it all. You know what I mean? Like, that's at the end of that. That's at the end of Acts. He gets bit by a snake. Out in the cold. Just got out the water. And he trying to warm up the fire for everybody and got bit. I don't even know if I would have been warming the fire back then. Like, nah, man, y'all got me on this ship. I ain't supposed to be on here in the first place. In fact, I told you not to go this way. I told you to go the other way, but y'all had to do what you want to do. I'm not even supposed to be on here. I'm on here because I'm sharing the gospel, and y'all like, this is crazy. But he decides to build the fire. Builds the fire, then get bit. And he decides to go and pray for someone. When we are going through hard times, we have to keep a mindset of keeping it kingdom. Why? Because kingdom connections. See, he didn't have a connecting flight, but his ship got shipwrecked and it connected him to that island. After he got connected to that island, he got connected to a family. God put him in that family's life on purpose so that man could be healed. If Paul had not been going through what he was going through, he wouldn't have been on the ship. The man wouldn't have gotten healed. God works all things out for the good of those who love him, called according to his purpose. And his purpose is for us to love him with all of our heart, all of our mind, all of our soul, and all of our strength, and love our neighbors. That was his neighbor. But we can't do it if we're not keeping it kingdom, because kingdom connections lead to kingdom relationships, and kingdom relationships lead to kingdom impact. Bro, this has been a blessing. But before we land this ship, we got to talk about this shirt. Like, how did this thing come about? I don't know. I feel like we've been going for like 3 hours now, but I know we probably got to wrap up, you know? So it's almost 4, so let's wrap it up. But just give some quick context to the shirt. They are available. We still have some, but man, you were a part of this. You kind of had your hands kind of in this. Can you just give those that are watching this kind of how this thing came about? How did it come about? And then, man, we'll probably close there. But yeah, how did this thing come about?
Well, real quick, yeah. So I'll give the background and a little plug about the value of these shirts. It was a conversation that I had with the chaplain in Arizona as I was setting up chapel. You know, as he tells me, he had a friend that had made one for the Giants. And so he had asked them if he could do the same thing, but for the Rangers with the Rangers font. And so he was in the process of making these shirts. And then he called me, he texted me. And he said, "Hey, what do you think about these shirts? Do you think if we make some shirts, the guys would wear it?" And I said, "Sure, man. The guys wear whatever." And again, I wasn't really thinking too much of it, but I was just giving them an answer. And I said, "But make it Ranger colors, red, white, and blue, so that they can wear it during batting practice if they want to, because we're only supposed to wear blue during batting practice." And so he went off and um, made some shirts, gave it to a bunch of players, and it just so happens that Evan Carter, when he was here, when he came up, first day he was here, he wore that for batting practice.
Mm.
And people saw it, and he had a great World Series, and the rest is history. But, um, you know, I guess maybe going back to all of the stuff we were talking about, when we're constantly just trying to do what it's in front of us for God, and we do it with a good heart, God makes things grow. I nobody thought these shirts would get this big.
Right.
I mean, Evan Carter has done a great job with it. Sold a lot of T-shirts for his community in Johnson City, Tennessee, and uh, it has grown big time. But the reason you should get one is because when you wear these things, people want to talk.
Right.
What does that mean? Jesus won. That's an opportunity for you to share your faith.
Come on.
And the people that I've given to, family, friends that I've given it to, I have gotten texts. Man, I've gotten a lot of comments from my T-shirts
It's
or
good.
from my T-shirt.
Praise
So
God.
when people see that on your shirt, on your chest, it's a conversation starter. Sometimes all you need is a conversation to share
Right.
your faith. You don't
Come
have
on.
to be in the corner, yelling at people. You just wear a T-shirt and start up a conversation. You never know what God could do.
Yeah, and you're right, because I've been at the store. I think it was last week, and a guy saw me. I didn't see him, so I come out of the aisle, and I have a package in my hand. So I have my cart, and I'm looking at the package, and the guy said, "That's right." I'm like, "What's right?" "That's right." "You're right." And so we begin to have just like this little dialogue,
Mhm.
and so it's for the non-believer, you know, as well as it is for the believer to encourage one another,
Yep.
right? And so, man, I'm grateful that you were kind enough to allow our relationship to flourish within the years, but then to say, hey, man, what would it look like if we were to help advance the gospel through the conversation of using this shirt in the area? And it is, I mean, students, and I mean, we popped up at a coffee shop, and like students and administrators and all people all around the city came and got some, and we'll do it again. And so I'm thankful that you allowed me to be a part of that journey, because we definitely want to continue to get the word out, that Jesus won, because he did. And
Yeah.
so, man, I'm thankful, bro. This has been a blessing. I know we based on our lunch, there's more that we could have talked about. We could probably be here for another hour.
Mhm.
Man, I'm so grateful, and I just pray that, man, if you're playing any sport, and even if you're not playing a sport, you're not an athlete, this pod is a well of wisdom from our brother, and he is somebody that I truly call a brother, not a guest, because you were speaking wisdom into me years ago, and when we met back in 2007, we went to the same church, and I did not know that I would be in this season of where I'm at. You didn't know, we didn't know. We didn't know where God was taking us, you know.
Mhm.
But we've been our relationship has been authentic, has been transparent. Again, we have a lot of things we can relate on. Um, and I'm just thankful just to be able to watch you as a husband, and as a father. Yes, you know, the career was great, but what I've had the pleasure to do is to watch you as a husband and father. I mean, your kids went through the school system during the season when I was a chaplain at the school, which again, that's just so cool
Mhm.
that they were there, right? At Lake Ridge
Mhm.
when I was a character coach, and so I would be on campus and just being able to, it just so cool. So, man, I'm grateful. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Thank you for just sharing your story of what God has just been doing. And I'm just grateful for these viewers that get to see how a kingdom connection led to a kingdom relationship and led to a kingdom impact. And so, hey, as you're watching this, just remember, hey, keeping the kingdom is not just a saying. This is a walking testimony of it. It's a lifestyle. All right. So until next time, man, we look forward to just hearing hearing and sharing. Like, hey, if you're seeing this, like, share. If you have a kid that is in sports, like, gain wisdom now, right? Like, use this as a tool as you're selecting a personal trainer. Use this as a tool as you're selecting a school to go to. Use this as a tool as you're selecting a strength coach. Use this conversation as wisdom to allow you to understand that nothing is possible without God. Amen. Well, hey, we love you. We'll on the other side. Until then, peace.